welcome to the podcast. Before we dig in, I wanted you to just take a minute to introduce yourself, Ryan.
Yep. My name is Ryan McCoskey, married to Ashley for 20 years. We got married in July 2005. We have 3 boys. Connor is going to turn 14
Wow.
on Valentine's Day of this year. So we live pretty close to the Hartman Arena up north, which is just a sea of parking spaces. So driving lessons pretty
Goodness,
soon. For
that's
him,
crazy.
It really is.
How are you feeling about that?
I feel pretty good. He golfs with me in the summers, and he drives the golf cart around, so he's got some experience in that. It is a weird feeling to have a kid who's driving. Blaine is 11, and August is 9, but he'll turn 10 this coming November, and then all of our kids will be double digits. So That's my family, and planted the Seed Church in 2012, and still here and loving it. And that's a pretty good summary of some of the main things about me.
Awesome. Well, we are doing a little bit of a different type of podcast series than typically what is done. We're doing just a podcast series based off of a sermon series on Ecclesiastes. The Seed Church is a church here in Wichita that you've been pastoring, you mentioned, for the past...
Yeah, if you include the core team building time toward planting, I guess about 15 years.
Yeah, 15. So you've been here for 15 years, been here since the beginning, planted the church. But our church is going through the book of Ecclesiastes. So I wanted to ask you, why Ecclesiastes? Because that's not a book I feel like a lot of people typically touch on either through like Bible study or like a sermon series. You'll hear it like usually like at like a wedding or like a funeral, like little like quotes from it. But it's a lot to dig into. So tell me like why Ecclesiastes for a sermon series?
Excellent question. Fun question. I think that I've got two good reasons. The first commentary, I've read multiple commentaries on Ecclesiastes over the years because I really like that book of the Bible. It's enigmatic, it's intriguing. Parts of it are beautiful, parts of it are kind of off-putting, and there's just a mixture of things that make it really interesting to read. There's a commentator named Derek Kidner who wrote a book on wisdom literature in the Bible, and he said something that totally changed my understanding of wisdom literature I had never seen or thought about before. And he said, if you look at Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes, and said Proverbs basically communicates if you live wisely, your life will go well. And largely that is what Proverbs teaches. And so some readers of Proverbs have said, this is too superficial. Life isn't this way. Like a famous proverb, if you raise your kids up in the way they should go, they'll never depart from it. And then many Christian parents would say, I think we had a gospel-centered home and loved our kids, but that wasn't the story. Well, then you go to Job, and the story is basically, if you do the right thing, maybe everything goes wrong. So it's the opposite of Proverbs. And basically almost anything you can imagine would goes wrong in Job's life. Then you get to Ecclesiastes, and it's like, regardless of what you do, who knows what's going to happen? And then what Derek Kidner said was so brilliant. He said, what you have to do to become a wise person is to take the strand of Proverbs, the strand of Job, and the strand of Ecclesiastes and weave them all together. And now you can learn wisdom. Sometimes when you live right, things go well. Sometimes they go very, very poor. And sometimes you don't know where it's going at all. And I thought that was brilliant. And it really kind of moved me to want to study the wisdom literature more. And I'd say the second major reason, Nathan, is lots of commentators throughout the years have said Ecclesiastes is a book that describes life without God. It says that this constant refrain of under the sun, under the sun, under the sun. And they've kind of argued that this futility of life, this sadness of life, these dark reflections are, if you don't have God in your life, but once you become a Christian and you have God, there's not these dark reflections anymore. But the more that I read and learned and studied commentaries, I came to be convinced that's not actually what this book is saying at all. The book is saying, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you know God or not, as a person living in this world, this is the real experience of real life for everybody. That everyone, regardless of their worldview, experiences life like this.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the Christian is able to respond to it in radically different ways and to know God in the midst of it. And as we go on in the series, we're going to see more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, to some degree, I wanted to dispel the notion that if you pray the right way, read the right books,
Yeah.
you know, if you're connected to God in some special way, that it disarms and eliminates those darker, more difficult reflections and experiences of life. And Ecclesiastes is not teaching that.
Yeah. I love that. Because, yeah, I think that it's a lot in modern Western Christianity that kind of plays into God is just a piece of like another like life hack. Like the same way that you like work out so that like you're healthy. Like you add God in so that like blessings flow. And it really treats God as a vending machine. And I also liked what you pointed out about seeing the three wisdom books pieced together and just the importance of like reading the full canon of scripture and really putting everything together in light of the canon and not just like cherry picking out a verse. Because you can easily look at Proverbs and say like, okay, like if I raise my kids in church and I do XYZ with them, I know for a matter of fact that like they're going to love Jesus and like it's going to be smooth sailing out. And then what happens when that doesn't happen? Like, does your faith crumble because God didn't deliver on that promise? So yeah, I appreciate that. Kind of give us a little bit of a summary of what you talked about on Sunday as far as just kind of digging into the first couple of verses that we dug into on Sunday.
That's great. It was the first 11 verses that we looked at together, Nathan. And Ecclesiastes is not a book of literature that begins with a prologue of peace and then slowly introduces the conflict or the problem or the issue. It throws you immediately into the issue right off the bat.
Yeah.
With verse 2 saying, futility, futility, everything is futility.
Yeah.
And we talked about how that word from Hebrew is pretty hard to translate. So some translations would say meaninglessness, meaningless, everything's meaningless, or futility, or vanity is a common one. But the Hebrew word is hebel, Hebel, which means breath or wind or vapor or mist. And so I told the church that maybe a word that helps us capture the emotional impact of that is the word nostalgia. That everything in this life is like nostalgia.
Yeah.
That it's real and it's substantial and it's really there. It's concrete.
Yeah.
And yet it's here and then it's gone. And then the sense of it you can still access, but then within a moment of having that nostalgic rush of something beautiful, a memory of when kids were younger or when parents were still alive or a great vacation or a great time in life. And then your schedule and your life and everything in the current world kind of crashes in, erases that sense of nostalgia. And it's almost like, I know it was here, but now it's gone. And not only is it gone, it is so gone that in some ways it almost feels like it was never here.
Yeah.
Like people trying to remember, like, what it was even like to have young kids.
Yeah.
I don't even remember it anymore.
Yeah.
That every aspect of life is that.
Yeah.
That's the first 11 verses. And so it's kind of like Demolition Day,
Yeah.
where the author is forcing the reader, and because the author is inspired by the Holy Spirit, the Lord is forcing the reader to begin asking questions about the most basic assumptions of the meaning and purpose of life. And I think the right response at the first 11 verses would be, well, do I really understand clearly enough, practically enough, the meaning and purpose of my life?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like even the nostalgia can be in the moment. Because like you can be in a moment and be like, this is so good. And like, I love what's happening right now. Like, I love making these memories at Christmas with my kids. But then like in that moment, you can even have a recognition of like, this is going to be gone like tomorrow. This is going to be gone even like in the next hour. And it's like the clock is just ticking until like I get old, I die.
That is such a good
the next
example.
bad thing happens.
Did you feel that sting at all as Christmas was ending and everything was being put away? Did you feel that this year or not really?
Not as much with Christmas, but definitely with my kids. I feel like I feel that all the time with them of like, this is so good, but it's going to be gone. Like I'm going to blink and it's going to be like, my kids are in high school. They're doing their own thing. and what we have now is just not going to ever be the same.
Yeah.
So, when do you feel like maybe you've seen maybe that futility or like just that heaviness, I guess, kind of show up in your life for the first time where you realize like everything about my life is this cycle of doing and becoming, but then it fading, doing and becoming, it fading. When do you feel like you have seen that in your life in like of your like powerful way that you kind of had to like wrestle with that question of like, is any of this worth doing? Why am I even here on the planet?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, Nathan, when I process my job, think a lot about the Lord calling me to ministry, love the work that I do, so thankful for it. And my job has this rhythm, that a Sunday comes, get up very early, get here to the church, get everything ready to go, to preach and lead. Love preaching, love leading the church. It's a joy. And then Monday through Thursday, I'm in the office, and I'm a very disciplined list keeper on things I want to get done. So I'll make a to-do list, and I work pretty diligently to get those things finished. And I like to work ahead. So I write my sermons ahead, and I plan my time ahead, and I set aside blocks of time to stay efficient. And I really think those things are very valuable, right?
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I'll have those feelings and remembrances of, okay, Ryan, so this week you are writing ahead to get sermons done just so you can continue getting ahead to get more sermons done.
Yeah.
And the trash needs taken out today, but that's just so
It can
the
get taken out
trash
the
needs
next
to take it
time.
out again.
Yeah.
And you're doing this counseling meeting to accomplish helping this person through a problem in their life just until another problem comes or another person comes with that same problem. And it can begin to crash in on you like you have this great week that you get a lot done and your to-do list is for a guy like me to see check marks on every single item is like, I've had a good week.
It's like a dopamine hit.
Yes, I've had a great week. I've got stuff done. I've been diligent. I've served the church well. I've loved my family. I've not been lazy, and I've been dedicated, and I've done it.
Yeah.
And it's great. But then when you slow down and reflect more deeply, you start to realize, okay, but this is good. But you've done all this just to do all this again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that you can't guarantee that things are going to go in a positive direction.
No.
Like there is no security in this world. And I think here in our modern culture, there we have so much sense of false security. Like praise God for innovation and technology, but it feels like you can overcome whatever kind of like hits you. And I know for me personally, last year, so 2024 was a year where it just felt like, man, I'm like grasping at things to kind of hold them together. But like every month, like there's another thing that's hitting. And it's like, there's like the next disaster. And it's like, okay, like kind of group everything back together and then the next disaster. And I remember kind of just being faced with like, why am I even doing any of this? We had like a miscarriage that year. That was like pretty far along. We were like at 18 weeks and me kind of having this realization of like, man, at any moment, any of my kids could be taken from me and like my life could be gone. And even like, if my identity is in like even being a dad, then what am I even doing if I can't even like hold on to my kids' lives? So I think it all hits us at different times and it hits us in different ways in different seasons. But I think that a common human experience that we kind of are all pushing down in the modern world is that cycle of futility, of that it's all just disappearing away. But we want the feeling of security. We want the feeling of we're building something that we can control and that can last. So
that's so true. It makes me think too when James, in the New Testament book of James, Nathan, when he says that suffering in a way perfects us, that we can rejoice. We don't rejoice for the suffering. We're not masochists. We're not desiring to suffer. And yet we can rejoice in the suffering because it is doing this perfecting work. And I think what you just described is that whether it's low-level suffering, that's just a daily reality of just earning a living by the sweat of your brow and the thorns of the field, to use the Genesis 3 curse,
Mm-hmm.
or much more deep suffering like a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Those moments do force us to reckon with things that are just really easy to ignore when everything is always up and to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, when Paul says that suffering produces endurance and then character and then hope, there is a way that suffering in this world does force us to reckon with that, which leans us back into the hopeful note of the series is gift, not gain.
Mm-hmm.
That even though there is no gain, like you mentioned, you haven't gained your kids
Mm-hmm.
like in a way that they may never get radically sick or die
Mm-hmm.
at a young age. You'd not even gain them in the sense that, let's say they do really well and have a great career and move away. They could move several states away,
Mm-hmm.
become missionaries and move halfway across the world and basically not have what feels like a regular relationship. You've not gained anything, and neither
Yeah.
have I. But in the midst of all this, there are gifts constantly surrounding us.
Yeah.
Learning how to tap into and enjoy those gifts seems to be the struggle.
Mm-hmm. We kind of talked about the idea of like, as a culture, we're all kind of pushing down that sense of futility. Like we don't know how to like reconcile it. We don't know how to process it. And so I think it also makes us really afraid of just the cycle of like almost like faithfulness or like grinding to work towards something. And so something I've noticed a lot in media, news stories, social media is you don't see a lot of highlights around someone that's like just kind of faithfully doing the same thing each and every day. I mean, even in the Christian sphere, you don't really see that necessarily. You don't see like the pastor that just faithfully shows up and preaches even for 15 years each Sunday. You see, the revival or the crazy outreach that this church is doing with like homelessness or like feeding like food pantries or like whatever it is. And I wonder how much that like affects what we see as valuable with like how we spend our time. Like, is motherhood and fatherhood valuable if it's just the day in and day out of runny noses, making another meal? Even is cooking like valuable? Like, or is it just, should we get like the next quick solution of like takeout or like whatever the quick thing is? So can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how can we, I guess, maybe reorient our lenses of what we see as valuable to where we're able to see value in just the faithfulness of just loving on people, discipling people, serving people?
That's really good. Nathan, Ecclesiastes is the book of wisdom, as is, of course, Proverbs and Job, like I mentioned earlier. And wisdom's a powerful tool in that, in some ways, it's a way of synthesizing experience and data, ideas, challenges, a broad range of things, synthesizing them into something that can be clearly, wisely applied to a given situation, right? So the question that you were saying it's a really good question, and it's a real quandary that our culture is navigating. And there have been lots of responses to this that have been in the extremes. I think lack wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So for example, some have continued to lean into, let's not think about the activity or the input, let's just get the results, right? How is the most efficient way to put in the least amount and get the most I can, which is a concern. Now, there has been in some degrees, even in our culture, you can see this shift away from that to the other extreme that may lionize a way of life, or let's just focus on the activity and the input. And if nothing comes from it, that's okay, because we've just continued doing this thing. While that may be a good counter to the other side, it's still just an extreme that I think lacks wisdom. I think wisdom then is able to take just the reality of what's in front of us and then begin to ask questions. How do we live in light of this particular thing? And so, Proverbs uses the metaphor of walking a lot. one foot in front of the other. And lots of commentators throughout the centuries have noted that when you walk, unlike running, when you're walking, you can read the signs and find your way, and you're more likely to go the right direction. Also, if you walk, it takes longer, but you can go a lot further, because if you're running, you wear out much faster.
Yeah.
And also, walking is so incremental. It's just 1 foot closer, 1 foot closer, 1 foot closer. And so in walking, there's still a result you're looking for, right? You're not just aimlessly walking in circles. You also are not probably saying, just for the sake of it, I'm going to take this route that takes 10 extra miles.
Yeah.
So there's still a result. There's still something you're going, but at the same time, there is a need to walk, to reflect on your way there, to not miss any signs on your way there, to learn and to understand and to develop muscles in your legs, developing the muscle memory. There's all these beautiful things in the Bible about walking in wisdom. And so I would almost say, Nathan, that I think there are moments that we should use technology. We should use, by God's general grace, new things that are developed that can make our lives more efficient, and things that we can do that really limit the time we put in. I think there are other things that if we do that, we will ruin our lives. If we try to find a way to make parenting with grace efficient, it's not possible. You have to walk. You have to walk that. Now, if there's a phone app that allows me to run my calendar and do some other things, I don't, unless someone wants to do everything on paper, they can, but I don't know if that in itself is something that everyone say you must do this, or baking bread and doing cooking in a certain way, we must do it like the old times. Well, I mean, if someone wants to, that's great, but I think wisdom necessitates us to slow down and begin to ask, how do I synthesize all these things for this situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I liked what you said about the walking. I think it's very, I love efficiency, and I always want to go full speed at things to get the most done. And you just pointed out the wisdom in that you can actually know where you're going. Like when you're walking, you can actually take the time to process and discern and be spirit-led. And it is countercultural too, because everything is so sped up, and so like we must be going at all times, and value is found in busyness. Like you even see that in like kids sports now. Like, it's like kids are at school 5 days a week, all day. They have practices. And then it's like, now we also have to travel multiple times on the weekend. And it's like, there is no break to the cycle. We're just going and going and going. So
good word.
I love that. I also liked what you had to say about that Jesus gives water that quenches our thirst. So I think, like we mentioned, all of us have like a thirst to break the repetition of life cycle. And, that cycle can look different for everyone. And I think it's very much like we oftentimes have a grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Like when you're in college and maybe you're single, you're like, man, this right here is so boring. Like I just do the same thing every day. I get up, study, take a test, go and work a job. And I wish I was like on to like the adventure of maybe a career or a marriage. And then you get married and you're like, man, like this is like the same thing each and every day. Like let's have kids. And then you have kids and you're like, I can't wait till we like are empty nesters and we can like have vacations or retire. And it's almost
you're
like
always living for the next stage.
Yeah. Like we're really like moving through what God's given us with, like, hopefully I can just find a way to escape like the boringness or whatever like stage I'm in. Like whatever that person has over there is probably like less repetitive. I would love to hear kind of your thoughts on that and like how you can apply the gospel to that.
Yeah, you are right. Those first 11 verses they are repetitious in Ecclesiastes. The sun rises and sets the same way. The rivers keep flowing the same way. The wind is blowing the same way. And so I pointed out in the sermon yesterday that this repetition in those first 11 verses is designed to help us realize that our lives are very repetitious by God's design.
Yeah.
And in that repetition, we absolutely can find ourselves feeling joylessness, aimlessness, sadness, just a waywardness around how do I break this cycle and find something that satisfies me?
Yeah.
And the statement that Jesus gives living water, he satisfies us, is true. But going back to what I said earlier, that some people read Ecclesiastes like, well, this repetitious sadness is true if you don't have God in your life.
Yeah.
But then once you find the living water of Jesus, you kind of break out of this repetition, and then nothing ever feels like it. Maybe that quote of, if you find a job you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
This thing, if you just get God in your life, you'll never feel a boring day of repetition in your life.
Yeah.
I don't think that's obviously true. And I think maybe the misnomer, Nathan, would be, I think people think their circumstances drive their feelings and attitudes a lot more than they actually do.
Yeah.
And maybe a quick metaphor would be, so let's say that we got the same job and it was backbreaking, boring, just like a life-sucking sort of job is what it felt like to us. And we both got hired, and the person said, you're going to do this work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for the next 6 months. So we have identical circumstances. But the boss pulls you aside and says, Nathan, after 6 months of work, I'm going to pay you $10 million for this.
Yeah.
The boss pulls me aside and says, Ryan, I'm going to pay you $50. Our circumstances are identical.
Yeah.
Our experience of those circumstances are going to be completely different.
Yeah.
You're going to be whistling while you work, having a great time, getting up every day enthused to go work again. And I'm just going to be looking for every way to get out of it.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, how do I quit this job? How do I leave this? How do I find something else? This is so drab and terrible. And the thing that's making the difference here is not the repetition. It's not the job. It is the understood outcome, ultimately, of where this is all going or what this is all producing.
Yeah.
And so because you have this vision of where this is going that's glorious and wonderful and this reward, you're able to sustain the repetition with great joy.
Yeah.
Because you found in this very worldly metaphor a living water, a water that's kind of giving you life to keep moving. On the other hand, I'm over here, making bricks without straw. And just exhausted. And so I don't think having Jesus means I've now broken out of the repetition, that I became a Christian, and so now my life is adventurous.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have a 40-hour-a-week job because I have the Lord, and so I'm going to have this adventurous, wonderful, free of repetition kind of life.
Yeah.
I think what the reality is that our lives, in terms of what we experience in this world, will be very similar to the lives of everybody else. But the difference is my understood outcome.
Yeah.
The reality that I see, that this faithfulness and my generosity and my love for others and all these things are storing up treasures in heaven, as Jesus teaches in the Sermon on the Mount, where moth can't destroy and rust can't destroy and thieves can't steal. And that there is this real Father in heaven who loves me and sees me and will reward me for my prayer and my service and fasting and all those things. So it's just like the job metaphor, that we have the same circumstances, but there's a whole new way of looking at it and experiencing it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Ecclesiastes is promising that, that somehow with God on our side, we break the repetition. But with a real relationship with the Lord and being God's people and accessing the resources that we have in the Christian gospel, we can now find joy in this repetition because we see an outcome from this.
Yeah.
And of course, that's where we didn't get there yesterday, because we're just in the first 11 verses and sermons have limited time, but that is where we're kind of moving as we move through this series.
I think it's also like, that the future is taken care of. Like in that analogy you gave, it's like, man, I'm going to work this job and I'm going to get to the end of it and I'm not going to have anything. And then for the person that's like with the 10 million, it's like, man, like I'm set, I'm taken care of. And I think that really ties into like the sovereignty of God, in that cycle of I'm going to do the same thing every single day, things are going to keep on deteriorating, wearing down. I'm going to keep fixing. Am I going to have enough energy, enough time, enough money to keep fixing things in life to be okay, for things not to fall apart? And I'm just like feeling this need to hold on to everything. When we really recognize God is sovereign and like he determines each thing that's going to happen, I don't determine any of it. He has the future taken care of, whether it's good or feels bad, like he's going to work good in that bad. I think that also plays a big role in it too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Let me look at my notes here. Something that I liked that you said on Sunday was, you said, what if the goal was to never jailbreak the repetition, but to simply find joy in it? And I think we kind of talked through that, of that you know who's in charge, you know God is going to take care of you, and you know what the outcome is going to be. Something you said on Sunday was, is God's distance because you're looking outside the life you've been given? And that's something that stood out to me, that I was kind of just sitting with, and I'm still thinking about what my thoughts are on that. Because it almost sounds like contentment is found in just kind of being like maintaining the status quo. But then also, none of us would be where we are at today if we didn't like stretch ourselves or change our circumstances sometimes to, grow in our career, grow, like move states or pursue a relationship. Like, how do you balance that of being content where you are, where God's placed you, but then also recognizing like he's placed desires on your heart to grow in certain ways? Like, how do you balance that?
That is a very good question. I think there's maybe not a better place to answer that than maybe just processing the stories of some of the fathers of the faith in the book of Genesis. So Abraham in Genesis 12, God comes to him and he does not give him a full roadmap.
Yeah.
But just gives him a command.
Yeah.
To leave his father's home and to go. And of course, we come to find out his father, Haran, doesn't stay home, and he brings his family with him, even though he wasn't supposed to. And along the way, there's lots of disobedience in Abraham's life, and God is graceful, and he's forgiving, and he's meeting with him, and he's walking with him. But each time the Lord comes, there is some sense of direction, but then these long seasons of waiting. And we know, looking back on Abraham's story, there was things happening in this waiting, preparing Abraham and his wife Sarah and circumstances around them and all sorts of things for the future of what God was doing. But God was in that season with him. And if we want to go look at Jacob's story and the issues with his family and the problems with his father Isaac and the pretending to be Esau and the 7 years for Rachel but gets Leah, and so 7 more years for Rachel. And once again, there's this, when you're reading his life, you're seeing a guy who is he's just running to find something to satisfy him. And you don't even really get a sense in Jacob's life that he's even really sensed or sought or maybe deeply experienced the Lord's presence until he wrestles with God that night. Then you look at Joseph, and sold by his brothers into slavery, Potiphar's house, the years in prison. And I think all these are showing us, Nathan, that the idea that maybe we are not hearing God's voice because we're trying to find our life outside of the life we've been given. I don't think in any way we should take that to mean that there should not be healthy hunger and ambition. Crying out to the Lord, Lord, we do this thing for me, God, or I'd love to see this in my life, or bless my children, or bless my future, or bless my career. I think prayers like that should be voiced continually, and that we should ask our Father for good gifts because he's a good Father. But I think beyond just being like the persistent widow who asks and asks and asks, which is a good thing, I think we can also become people who begin to move into a frame of mind that if God loved me or if my life is going to go well, these certain things must happen.
Like you have a checklist of like what my life should look like.
And if it doesn't move at this speed, or if this doesn't occur, or if this disaster happens, or if I don't get this job, these feelings and this sense of until this occurs, my life just can't be in order. There can't be. And so that mindset, that heart attitude, that stuckedness is an image of, no, the Lord is with me in this waiting or this suffering or this moment right now, and he's speaking in it. And I can know him and walk with him. But I'm basically wanting or producing in my own experience his voice being very distant, because I'm committed to the idea that until this certain thing passes or happens, that there's nothing here for me, that this is basically a no man's land until the next thing happens. I'm describing more of that.
Okay.
Which is so, I mean, we could apply it, Nathan, at really big events.
Yeah.
But even on a daily basis,
Yeah.
we can find ourselves in moments of, okay, this task I'm in right now is useless and fruitless and boring and futile. And once I get done, I can get to my real life.
100%. Yeah.
That's more of what I was describing that's so easy to fall into.
Yeah. Well, even like feel like when you have a day that goes poorly, we all have the days where it's like everything keeps breaking and like everything kind of keeps untangling itself. It almost is like, okay, this day is just bad. And until we get to the next day, like it can't be, like life is not almost like blessed with God's presence. And it's like, I can't even be looking for ways to glorify him or like ministry opportunities in today, because today is just like, check it off as like a bad day.
Yep. I need new mercies tomorrow morning because today's are gonzo.
Yeah.
There's no mercy left today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Last question. What stood out to you the most in this like first 11 verses as you preach through these? Kind of what hit home the hardest for your heart?
I think, Nathan, that when I was writing this sermon, which was several months ago, because I was writing pretty far in advance to start getting some clarity on where I sensed the Holy Spirit was leading as I was looking at chapter after chapter. I think when I started connecting this word Hebel with nostalgia, the referencing past commentaries I had read and just thinking and reflecting and praying, and then looking at this just masterful poetry about very common things in this world: the sun, the rivers, the wind, generations come, generations go. There's nothing new under the sun. I think as I put all this together and stood back, I think what really grabbed my attention, I remember I was sitting in my office where we are right now. I was looking out this window at the trees and the cars and the sky. And I was just processing, basically saying to myself, Ryan, if you don't gain an eye and a heart and an ability to really enjoy what your Father is doing now, right now, just in the view you've got here from this office, this building the Lord's provided for this local church, the things happening today in my life, like if you don't get an eye to receive these with joyful faith, you are frittering away the gift the Lord is giving you.
Yeah.
He's not giving me the gift of something happening down the road that I hope happens. Like the gift is now. And so maybe this is going to come up later in the series, but maybe the thing that struck me, that stuck with me is, what does it mean, Nathan, that you and I could be men that learn how to live in the moment, but not living for the moment? Right? To live for the moment means this is all there is. Yeah. And suck as much joy as you can because it's all dark. And that'd be very nihilistic and fatalistic and YOLO sort of attitude, right? But what does it mean to live in the moment, yet understanding this all is leading to a great and glorious future? This is leading to a new heavens and new earth. But even though it's leading there, I'm not called to live there. I'm called to live now, in this moment. And so I think it just struck me as I read those things, and the author was so clearly showing there is no lasting gain of any kind anywhere in this world. Nothing is locked in. And so if nothing is locked in, then what I have is right now. Yeah. And so if I don't get an eye to praise God and be grateful for right now, to see his hand and to like the Bible teaches, which I think still feels like a foreign language to me, rejoice in your sufferings. I mean, I understand it cognitively. I'd be a liar to say I have a PhD, a master's, or even a bachelor's in practicing that.
Yeah.
But I want to.
Yeah.
And I think Ecclesiastes teaches us and moves us toward how do I be the kind of person who can live in the moment, but not for the moment.
Yeah.
Not trying to break the repetition, but submitting to it because I've been created as a creature in this world and this is how God has made it, but with a deep undercurrent of hope and faith about where all this is leading. And I think that first 11 verses really just further cemented for me,
Yeah.
the need that I have for this. And I think probably lots of people in our culture.
Yeah. It's almost like the prayer should almost be like, Lord, wake me up from like the numbness I feel towards like the lack of sacredness. Like each moment that's given is sacred. I have to choose and be made aware of that, because it's like when I'm living in the moments and I'm not able to see that, that's when it's like this moment doesn't matter, or there's no value in this moment, or we over like value the moment too. And even in how we see people, it's like I think so much of the brokenness in relationships comes from like the starting point of that brokenness is that we don't see that person's made in the image of God. Like you can't take advantage of somebody.
That's great.
You can't like purposely harm someone if you are living with the knowledge that they're made in the image of God. It's like you have to diminish them first before like you can harm them or hurt them. And I think maybe the same with time too. Not that time is made in the image of God, but time is sacred and it's a gift from God.
I think too, as I get older, one of the odd temptations or things you experience is when you're younger, I think you tend just to lionize the future. You tend to think about where things are going to go and where they're going to be.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, one of the temptations is trying to replay the past. You're trying to lock in something that once happened and make it happen again over and over and over. And I think it's the same. It's a similar idea to this sense of if I'm living for the moment, then I'm using everything at my disposal to wring out what feels like the most pleasure, the most comfort, to medicate or help or give me a crutch to deal with whatever struggle I'm in. And of course, if you take that to extreme ends, you get terrible addictions and people destroying their lives because they're living without any regard to a bigger story. They're just living for the moment.
I so appreciate you sitting down and just kind of fleshing out a little bit more of the sermon and maybe some thoughts that people have had.
Nathan, I'm really thankful that you're doing this video podcast. Thank you for setting all this up, bringing this equipment here, making this happen. Really excited about it. And each week after there's a sermon, we're going to get together and do one of these episodes. And I'm looking forward to some extended time of us just unpacking this and you generating some questions and us aiming to serve people in our community, people in our local church, to build off of the content of Ecclesiastes and just ask the Lord to help us live wisely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan.